Dearly redheaded, we are choosing consciousness today to get through this thing called grief. Interesting word, grief. It means love, which makes for a mighty good joke. But I'm here to tell you, there's nothing else. Just joy. And if the big picture tends to bring you down, go crazy once your life goes. Woo!
Good morning. It's Monday, and I'm back with Tantra Tom Bucsku. Hi, Tom.
Hey, good morning.
Your main role right now, or your main focus, is being a dating coach for divorced men, correct? That's kind of been the passion project of late.
Yes, and it just kind of came very naturally. Like I want to work with men, and but I find it so fascinating, relationships and dating, that it's a perfect combination for me.
Nice. I find it fascinating too. So, the last time we spoke, we touched on KunTalini awakenings, experiences. Historically, you did KunTalini workshops. Fair word.
Yeah, I would call it a workshop. Typically, we call them a KunTalini activation, and it's a workshop format. It's not sitting around listening; it's experiencing. And
from the activation, what did you find people experienced? Do you want me to lead with my experience, or you go?
I would love to hear your experience, and then I can share some of I'll share my own, and then some of the other people that I've worked with.
It was the early part of 2022. I was in agony in my body for the first time. It had the issues that I was experiencing had come out of my mind, and I knew they had always been in my body, but my body was bearing the brunt of a lot of pain, and I was gunning for release, asking my guides, asking God, asking my father who had passed. I was just carrying way, way too much and feeling it very somatically. So I, for a couple evenings, as I recall, I would just soak in the tub to help with the heat in my body. And I, at one point, leaned forward to drain the water, leaned back, and I went out for about 4 hours as best I can tell. When I woke up, I was a different person. I had never heard of KunTalini, and at that moment didn't know anything about it, but I was led away from alcohol. I was led away from substance, meat. After that experience, I was unable to, I'm just going to say it, use another body for sex. I totally, not that I was doing that regularly. That's not what I mean, but I knew all of a sudden that if I was going to be in a sexual relationship, the energies had to be right. It couldn't just be what it had been previous. Make sense?
Oh, absolutely.
All right.
It really raises how you connect with other people.
Right. So I was the same person, but I was a markedly different person. I found that my tolerance, I never had a huge tolerance for violence, but it even lessened as a result of that. And from there, I started to learn about KunTalini. I don't remember how. It wasn't brought to me. I found it, so I was guided to it. And then I was talking to somebody at the time who was acting more as a guide than a psychologist, and he had been studying KunTalini yoga, and it went from there. I had somebody that I could bounce things off of. So I think the sexual aspect of the spiritual experience was I couldn't use someone else's energy for pleasure, nor could I let someone enter me to use my energy for pleasure.
And did you find a difficult experience overall, not just in that aspect?
Physically, I had around that time also was having other small spiritual awakenings, and I had talked to this gentleman, Padga Prakasha, who wrote a book on Shakti energy, because I was also infatuated with Mary Magdalene. You may remember I told you, and I was having either chills or sweats, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I've heard similar things.
But I've seen it. I've seen it in one case put a woman in really, really, I don't want to say dire straits, but it really has taken her months, if not years. I don't know her well enough to relay it, but to get the energy regulated. So I know it can wreak havoc.
Yeah, you had what is called a spontaneous Kundalini awakening.
Yeah.
And I've met several people over the last few years who've had that kind of experience, and it can be really challenging because, number one, everything happens all at once, like your sensitivity to the world around you, to other people, to their energies and your connections. And the other thing is that it's unexpected. So it's scary because you weren't trying to do it. You don't even know what it is. You may not even have heard of the word Kundalini, and then you're having this completely shifted experience of life. And I don't really wish that on people. And it just seems to happen, and there doesn't seem to be any rhyme or reason from the people that I've spoken to. Just some people are ready, and that's the experience that they needed to have for whatever reason. My experience was completely different. So, but I wanted to make sure you've got space if there's anything else you'd like to share about what you went through before I dive into my own.
No, it was the first of a series of awakenings that were very necessary for me. And it led much later to a shedding of my unconscious, the dark night of the soul, but I don't want to go there. You and I maybe another time can go there if you've had experience with that. But I didn't release my unconscious for what I was harboring in my unconscious for 2 years later. So the whole time I was having various ascension experiences, and I don't know what else to call them. I was just really getting in touch with who I really am within my spirituality and my intuition, and I still am. So it's kind of ongoing.
Yeah, and I think it will be forever. And I mean, my own journey is ongoing, and I'm consciously seeking it, and I have been for years. So my experience was very different. It was much more gradual and intentional. And I've been to personal development workshops. I mean, all the way back when I was 19, I took the Dale Carnegie course just to learn how to get along with people better. And, I did all the Tony Robbins, and there's a little bit of energy stuff in there, but it's not the focus. And, I've been a Reiki master for 25 years now. So, and to me, that was extremely woo-woo back, was I late 20s at the time. But I always said Reiki is like a gateway drug to energy work. So I've been kind of in touch with this world of energy and spirit, but very logical, former engineer, left-brained all the way. So none of it made sense to me. So I really had to work to accept it. And then I started doing some more, I call it consciousness work, through a men's group that I was part of. And having done that, I think I was in that for about 3 years when I discovered that Kundalini activation is a thing. And so I went to one of these workshops, and I had kind of the opposite experience of you. I mean, it was bliss and pleasure and ecstasy beyond anything I had ever experienced. I mean, take your best orgasmic sexual experience of your entire life, and we might have a handful of those that we think of, and 10x it but it wasn't in my body. It was in my energy. It was centered about a foot off of my heart. And some people call it an energetic orgasm, but I really think that does it a disservice because it just doesn't compare to anything you might experience physically. And I mean, I was hooked immediately, as you can imagine.
Yep.
But I think the reason I had that experience is that I had already been doing a lot of work to open myself up. I think 6 months prior to that, I was at a weekend event in California where we were working on all the chakras, focusing on each one, opening them up. And then when it got to my third eye, I started writhing and screaming like I was just getting flooded with energy and information and connection, and I didn't understand it. But like that was a precursor to me for the Kundalini activation, so it prepped me for it. So I was in a good place to experience all those things. And then I decided right then and there that I was going to learn how to facilitate this. Just like I learned Reiki, I experienced it once in my travels back in 2000. And once I experienced it, I knew I had to learn that. So I've done the same thing. But before I even did my training, I went back for my second activation as a participant. And it was the same thing. But Joanne, it was even more intense and more powerful, which I didn't think was even possible. It actually raised the ceiling of what I thought was the limit of pleasure that I could experience as a human being. And that made me realize, well, wait, if I thought the previous one was the limit and I'm breaking through that, that means this isn't the limit either. What else is possible for me? And then I go to my third one, all cocky, right? Like, all right, well, this is really going to blow that away. No, it was all about that darkness, that shadow. And fortunately, some of my consciousness work has given me the ability to see the beauty in all of that as well, because it is all part of the human experience. But I was surprised by it, but fortunately, I had the tools to handle it. So I couldn't imagine being thrust into something like that without having some guidance, without having some tools to lean on to be able to work through it all.
This is sort of a tangent, but not one that's going to throw you. Did you equate? Because I've had an orgasm without touch, and I know how incredible that is. I wouldn't quite describe it the way you did, but I was keenly aware that it was intense. Would you equate those experiences with a higher dimension? Like outside?
Yeah, I would.
Okay.
Yeah, I would. And I mean, you're kind of getting beyond my expertise at this point, but I know that there's something divine happening.
Right. Yeah, because that's where I want to go next and talk about the different dimensions. But let's just stay where we are. So you have had the privilege of accompanying, or well, that's the wrong word, but helping people get to the point where they're either having spontaneous or, like you said, it kind of was in your consciousness to emerge.
Yeah, and I would say what I do is I facilitate it, which is why I call myself a Kundalini activation facilitator. Like I'm not doing anything, and this was hard for me to learn once I went through my certification process, because the way I had learned Reiki was that it flows from source in through the top of your head, out your hands, and into the person you're working on, and that visualization or model worked for me when I did Reiki for 20 years. And so when I learned Kundalini activation, I was trying to do the same thing. But that's not how it works, because Kundalini energy is a person's own life force energy. It's not something that comes from outside, whether it's another person or from source. Yep. It's already within. It's your divine spirit. People call it chi or prana or mana. It goes by all the different names, but it's ultimately that which gives you life. It's that spark of consciousness. And so all I'm doing when I'm facilitating is I'm creating a space for other people to wake that up. And in ancient Indian traditions where this is well described in the Tantra, so the teachings. It's energy coiled at the base of the spine in the root 3.5 times, and then it rises up the spine, up the chakras like a serpent rising up, which is why a serpent is a symbol so often for Kundalini energy. So all I'm doing is creating a space where a person's own energy can activate and wake up, and as you know, it changes your experience. Now, for some people who haven't done a lot of energy work or even meditation or yoga or what have you, it may be that you don't even experience anything. Like I do a live Zoom session every Wednesday at 9 Eastern, and I did one last week with somebody who had been on at least a dozen. And every time he's like, yeah, that was nice. That was peaceful. That was great. I like the music. It kept coming back. And last week he was like, wow, that was the first time I really felt something. So after a dozen times, and I give the guy a lot of credit for staying with it, but it's a cumulative process in a lot of places, a lot of people. And then there's something like, and I'm getting into some of the examples now of what people experience. Last night, I just had somebody on for the first time who they weren't on video, they didn't say a word, or they just typed into the chat, yeah, this is my first time. And I didn't hear from them when we were done, but they knew somebody else on the call, and they had texted that person. And I actually want to read this to you because I'm just like so excited to have gotten this because she forwarded it to me. This is him talking to her about the session. She said, thank you for bringing me into this journey. I don't even have all the words to describe it yet, but I feel different, lighter, stronger, more alive. It's like something in me woke up, and I'm seeing life from a completely new place. My presence even feels different to myself. And that is a perfect description of what Kundalini energy is.
It is. Wow. Wow, thank you. Yeah, I have needed to, I look at it as a divine experience, and I have since then needed to, and when I talk about the dimensions, it's not always research, it's just what I'm guided to know as being claircognizant. So when I say things, I'm not trying to assume it's hook, line, and sinker with you. It's just how I've come to rationalize this very, very spiritual side of me, and it's part of me that is extraordinarily I'm just going to say it. I've just always had an extraordinarily sexual, sensual mind. So that experience sort of, I don't want to say validated it because it wasn't something I needed validated, but it was something that made me more comfortable with the way that I think about sex and sexuality and what I think is so higher dimensional. And I don't mean that in a because it becomes less physical. Fair?
Yes. It becomes more energetic, and that's one of the ways I describe this energy is especially when we're talking about the root chakra and pulling it up. It's Kundalini energy, it's life force energy, it's sexual energy, it's the energy of creation. Because that's what sexual energy is. It is literally the energy of creation. We create another human being through our sex organs, through our energy. Two conscious souls come together and bring another soul into the world. To me, it was always just sex, right? It was getting laid, it was physical, it felt good, and validating myself. Now it really is a sacred experience, which is why you don't want to have the experience of just being with any person randomly, right? And for me, once I got divorced, I was single for 2 years before I even went on a date, and then another 2 years after that before I really got into it. And the reason for that is that I became so in touch with my own energy and other people's energy that in the past, if somebody's good looking, sure, let's go. Now, no, what's your vibration? I have a completely different standard for what I'm willing to connect with in another person.
Yeah, I'm learning. I had no. It took me a good 10 years of healing to want to date, but that doesn't mean it's been. Well, I don't want to get too personal. Since my spiritual awakening, I have not indulged. So, because I can't. It's just I don't even. I don't even know how to explain it.
You just can't go there.
No, I just can't. And I'm one of those women who previously could better than most. Not that I was. It was just because I wasn't connected emotionally. The sex wasn't hard, and I don't. No disrespect to the men that couldn't be used for sex, but anyway. The first time I had a fifth dimension experience was probably, I don't know. It was after the KunTalini. I know my mom was still on the planet. At least I think she was. So probably 2024. And the way that I was guided, and I'm oddly guided. When I pay attention, which of course is key. I was thinking about somebody in my life, and I didn't know why I was thinking about him. Happily married man, somebody that I had known for years, and I was guided to know that it wasn't that I was thinking about him, it's that he was thinking about me. You with me?
Yes.
So have you heard these kind of stories?
Oh, I've experienced them in both directions.
Okay.
They were thinking about you, and you're picking up on that signal.
Right, because I have a knack for reading energy, but at the time I really didn't know it, Tom. So I feel like I'm fumbling a little bit, and I'm glad you just. So anyway, what I did was had a 5D experience with him. And then the thoughts went away. You with me? So I satisfied. Mm-hmm. It wasn't. This person is a lovely person. It wasn't like, I was game. How about that? 5D game. So you've had these experiences. You know what I mean?
Yes. Yeah. And I don't quite have had that experience where I've connected with somebody remotely in the fifth dimension in that way. No, I totally see how that can happen, and watch. So that'll show up for me in the next 2 weeks.
Yeah, good luck with it. But it's not. But I want the listeners to know that these experiences are not. I mean, talking about it may be uncommon, but they're not uncommon experiences. It's how consciousness works, and it's also tied to how your own intuition and your own ability to tune into your own consciousness. Then you become more adept at understanding other people's consciousness, etc. So that's sort of where it stems from. And I don't want people to think it's not masturbation. So just to clear that up, it's energetic. It's an energy exchange. So once I had that experience, now I think I had to have that experience to remain open to other energy experiences, not just sexually, but just it was kind of like it opened the floodgates for all type of, I don't know what it is. Is it telepathy? I don't know. It's just an ability. I used to have it more with people that had passed on, and I'm starting to have a greater ability with consciousness. Fair?
Absolutely.
All right.
And you can call it whatever you like. Whether it's a heightened consciousness, your intuition, psychic abilities, telepathy, what have you. It's all, again, just different ways of describing a similar experience.
True. But I'm a little. I mean, I'm thrilled, and I also said this off the air with you, but I also want to make it clear with my listeners: you are involved with someone, and this conversation is meant to make other people. It's not like you and I think, can discuss this stuff without it being odd. So, Tom has a girlfriend. Go ahead.
Yes, just so for your listeners, we have a purely podcast relationship. and it's a lovely one. And honestly, that's what makes it safe to talk about these things. And I've had similar experiences where I worked with the Tantra Institute out of New York, I think I mentioned, and I went through their 90-day relationship experiment where you actually have quote unquote practice relationships. And the women that I got paired with, I always told them the first call, like, hey, I'm in a committed relationship. And at first I thought they were all going to be disappointed, like, oh, I really wanted to be with somebody who's open. It turns out every single one of them was like, that was the best thing that could have happened because it relaxed me. I knew there was no pressure. There was no possibility of it going. I could soften into the experience and really put the things into practice. And so it was actually a much better experience. And that's kind of what we've got going on here. You know that I'm committed. We just celebrated our year anniversary, and she is the most amazing woman I've ever met, and she is connected in all these ways. That's one of the things that we connected with when we first met. So and that might lead into a later conversation.
Yes, I'd like you to share whatever you're willing where that's concerned, because I think too it just makes our listeners recognize what's possible. And I also, Brian just indicated we've already been talking for 25 minutes, so I sort of want to stay where we are and start the next episode. But to try and synthesize what you just said, I agree. I don't know why I didn't ask you if you were single or attached when we first started talking, but when you told me, I was like, oh, thank Jesus, because it does.
It takes the pressure off.
And it makes me realize how it is fair to have these connections based on the best 3D human experiences with those without it having to be anything more, which also speaks to, hear me, to when you have a 5D relationship with an energy, they don't always translate back to the 3D.
No.
But I think...
No, it's like...
Go ahead.
I was going to say, it's like your higher self connecting with their higher self, but you may not mesh at a personality level.
Yes.
Or the situation may not be right.
Yes. You can be a real prick in 3D.
Yeah. But ultimately, I believe at a soul level, we're all beautiful beings. And when you can connect soul to soul, you can look past all the flaws and the faults of the person.
Yes. I am very guided in general, and I have a definite masculine energy that I don't know what I want to say about it. It's a consciousness thing. I know it's not me. I know it's not my higher self. So it's a male consciousness that I have an affinity for, and it's been lovely. And I don't go to the races with it. It's just something that has stepped in the last couple of years. And prior to that, ironically, and this is the little girl in me. Prior to that, it was always my father's energy.
Mm.
And once my mother died, my father, I make a lot of jokes, but I'm also very serious. My father was like, okay, been taking care of you for a number of years, going back to her, adios muchacho. And his energy sort of left. Not that it's just different now. It was much more paternal. This energy now that I whatever you want to call that, I use the word commune because I don't have a better one. Is just very. It's kind of what I would want in 3D if it were possible, but it's not. But I don't spend 24/7 with the energy. When the energy seeks me or I seek it, it's available.
Yeah. So I would hear that as you've got this spirit guide, right? You call it an energy, right? This masculine energy. When I first did my KunTalini training, everybody in there was like, oh, this spirit guide and that spirit guide. I'm like, wow, I want spirit guides. Like, where are mine? I hadn't ever connected with them. But I've got like a really similar feminine energy. Was my first guide that I became present to, which again, that could be another conversation because that freaked me out. I thought I was going crazy.
Well, let's lead with that. Let's lead with that. Let's take a break.
Let's do it.
All right.
Thank you for listening and supporting Natural Born Redhead. If you follow the bouncing balls, please like and subscribe. If you know someone interested in sparing others grief and inciting joy, message me on Facebook or reach out via my website, Natural Born Redhead. Jai Ma.